Boom. All right, legends. I hope this finds you utterly firing on this fantastic Sunday morning in paradise. If it's not paradise for you today, I hope to make that a bit better for you. And, hopefully you can learn from today's video a bit. So, right, have a look at this. It's the state of our country at the moment.
Shame on you.
This is disgusting!
The fuck has that Muppet got gloves on for?
Disgusting!
You're arresting a hero.
What are you doing?
Hardly wish to give that dignity by playing it, but that's an aging Royal Air Force veteran getting manhandled out of a protest. I believe this is something to do with Palestine, but that's irrelevant, isn't it? And you might want to note the colours there on their hats. So let's get into it. All right, legends, I'm Chris Thrall. I'm a former Royal Marines Commando turned enlightenment coach. I do a lot of adventures as well, as you probably saw from the little promo video there. Mainly, I like running across deserts, rowing across oceans and running the length of the United Kingdom to raise awareness of veterans' mental health and this alarming suicide rate we've got at the moment. I'll come on and talk more about that as we go. First off, can you like and subscribe, folks? I'm saying this more and more, and we're actually getting some subscribers because I always forget to say it. If you don't say it, people just don't subscribe. I think we're the best channel on the internet. In fact, I know we are. Hopefully by the end of this video, you'll think likewise. So, first off, the channel chat is set for channel subscribers, folks. If you're wondering why you can't chip into the chat, it's because you're not subscribed. This is just a thank you to the people that do subscribe. Also, if you tuned in here to hear me slagging off Tommy, who's a friend of mine, you're on the wrong channel. We love all people on this channel, despite, that's not the easiest thing to do, is it, with what's going on in the world? But that's because we understand something called unity consciousness, that we are actually, when it boils down to it, all one organism, and that by putting out hate, you're putting out negative energy and bringing everyone else down. There's a better way to deal with this and all this shit that's going on, like this, than getting angry, folks, What I thought is, I can't put my media on, social media, because I don't watch the mainstream media. I haven't done since those events in New York and Washington 20 years ago, when I realised life isn't what we thought it is it, friends? And the people that we trust are really not to be trusted. So I can't even put my social media on without seeing Tommy all over it. And what I thought is, well, if that's the case, why don't I have a turn to have a speak on my channel? Because I don't think the mainstream protagonists, and by mainstream I mean in the freedom movement, are covering the reasons why we're seeing rampant immigration that's destroying the very fabric of this once beautiful and great nation. And as a former commando who served on the front line for my country, I'm not having it. And I get what's going on. So I can say, although we're a little bit limited on some platforms, okay, I don't know why these other protagonists are not talking about the obvious element in the room, which is the hidden hand that's controlling the government. Not the government control everything. And I'll come on to that. And in no particular order. So I'm going to go to our Sun Tzu quote, right? Basically, Sun Tzu, this legendary, was he a Chinese philosopher? He basically said, like, if you know yourself, you know, you might win one or two scraps and you're going to fail. If you know your enemy, then you're always going to fail. But if you know your enemy and you know yourself, you can never be defeated. And what he's referring to there is something called gnosis, which is understanding energy, vibration, and frequency. Gnosis means knowing. When you can develop gnosis, then you look at all this hideous nonsense that's going on. Like here, these Protestant football fans. Who are singing, "You can stick your Palestine up your hole." Remember what I said about oneness, folks. These are people who, they're on their journey, that's fine, but completely don't understand that those people marching by are them, because there is only one. There's one thing in play here. Secondly, considering that their country has been absolutely ransacked by division and hatred, are they not aware that a certain country in the Middle East is the fiefdom of the Rothschilds and their fellow merchant cabal? Cabal comes from word Kabbalah, which we're going to come into. That a certain country in the Middle East was set up as the front company, the facade for the New World Order. If you don't think that works, try and criticize someone from there. One of your, Larry Silverstein, who owned the Twin Towers. And 6 weeks before a certain event, he put an insurance policy on them, specifically covering the acts of... And then, because you've got to remember, he's putting the policy on. His buddies in the cabal, his fellow maniacs, they own the insurance company, which people like you and me pay into honestly. They pay him out twice. So on buildings that were absolutely not worth anything because they were full of asbestos and they had to come down, he claimed 6 billion because he claimed for 2 acts of the error word. I can't say that word on the channel. We get flagged every time, folks. So, yes, not here to slag off these wonderful human beings. I'm just here to say, if your energy and vibration frequency is that low, you're a long way away from gnosis. Gnosis means knowing what's going on. Right. We looked at this, didn't we? We did a Conor McGregor video yesterday. We looked at the film Idiocracy.
And then he would throw his brainy ass back in jail.
And we looked at how in Idiocracy, which a lot of people refer to as a documentary, not a comedy film, they actually highlight when, I don't know if this guy's like I think he's a wrestler. What do you call that? Someone put it in the comments. He's a wrestler that becomes the president, and he's got all these stupid shit policies because obviously he's a wrestler. Hey ho. Moving on, this is General Mike Flynn, who, if I understand correctly, because I'm not really aware of all the kind of, the 17 thing. Is it that letter or that the little round letter with a little tail? Again, can't speak about that on platforms, folks. They call that endangering the public. But I believe some people refer to him as the secret dropper, who's dropping these, these what we call in the military signals onto the is it the dark web or the forum rooms? Anyway, he's put this video together, which is great. But if he's honestly leading the world out of oppression, then I don't think the good general's doing a good job. Because he's talking to Tommy here, and Tommy has worked tirelessly. That's not what I'm talking about. But what he says here is, look, who has courageously exposed the egregious, I can't even say that word, actions by his very own government. And what are we here to say? We're here to say, if you think this is the government, you don't, either the general's playing along, or he's trying not to get branded or outcast from his job role, but it's not the government that's behind, the British government, folks, didn't have the ability to lock every single person on the planet in their homes for the best part, 1 to 2 years, and have every single professional dentist, doctor, lawyer, school teacher, police officer go along with it. And when I say everyone, friends, I'm hopefully not referring to you, because I didn't go along with that. For me, kids come first. If I have to go to prison for that, I'll just be in paradise in prison, right? So not everybody, but you get what I'm saying. You have people in, remote Polynesian islands that had never seen a Westerner. And when their neighbour of 50 years is walking down, the path towards them, they was throwing himself, into the sea or diving into a hedge, because they were also utterly terrified of catching a fiction, right? And I won't expand on that. If you haven't yet worked out, you are the orchestrator of your health. Sorry if you haven't worked, if you're one of these people that you think you catch it off Doris up at the supermarket, learn terrain theory, because your life will be, your life will be an awful lot better. Anyway, moving on from the general, my point being, this is a powerful cabal. They own everything, folks. They control everything. Music industry, medical industry. They've been indoctrinating people since they got the split from Pasteur, who said there's bogeymen out there and he can jump from one person into the other. So, be careful. And then Beauchamp, Antoine, came along and went, don't be a knob. There ain't no bogeyman. You certainly physically can never prove that. What is far more likely is it's your terrain. It's the way that you look after your welfare that dictates what you're going to experience. That doesn't help the big club, the dark cabal, because if you tell people that they can take charge of their well-being, there's no money in that. They want victims. They want people in victim mode, don't they? So, powerful cabal, own everything. Look at BlackRock if you want to, learn any further. I got to move on because I am aware I haven't even started talking about the issue yet. So, anyone notice? Somebody put it in the comments. I'm not going to say anything. So, for our audience that's new today, new to this channel, think that I'm this mad guy in a baseball cap. What do we notice on that digger? In fact, I've just realised it's the chat won't be flying past today because I've set it to slow. So for the sake of speeding things up, I'll speed it up. Look at the numerology, the 33. And yes, thank you. Hang on. Dun, dun. Where are we? Thank you, La Tourist Viva. I knew you wouldn't let me down. Right. Why is this important? The number 33. This article, incidentally, is Norway sparks row with Trump after dumping bulldozers used by Israel. So Norway have ditched its shares as a country in Caterpillar because Caterpillar supply the bulldozers that are currently bulldozing people's homes. Ironically, I don't know if I can show it here. This is the actual bulldozer in question that's being used in the Middle East. It's a completely different brand with a completely different brand number. But for some reason, which we'll delve into, the media have used this one with the 33 on. Why is that symbolic? Well, I asked AI Grok, why is the number 33 used as a signature for deep state, Masonic, occultic, false flag and orchestrated events? Please provide a credible argument and stay clear of mainstream sources. That's your Wikipedia, folks, your CNN, your United Nations, all the people that are gonna gaslight you and tell you you're crazy if you don't, for example, believe, that a skyscraper can fall out the sky for no reason. You have to ask Grok that, because Grok is programmed to gaslight you and go to all the mainstream sources first. And here it says, dun, dun, dun. Folks, just a reminder, could you like and hit the subscribe button? We got an awful lot of people watching. So and I just want to say something here, folks. I'm not accusing you Freemasons of anything. There's so many military lodges and veterans lodges out there. I absolutely know for a fact they have no clue what's going on. We're talking about the Cabal, the Kabbalistic Sabbatean Frankist doctrine, which has come down through the ages since they took control of the money supply, which is allegedly 6,000 years ago, and which was honed with a chap called Sabbatai, Satan, Sabbatai Z, or Sabbatai Zevi, you might have heard him of, 400 years ago. And Sabbatai's successor, Jakob Frank, he hooked up with the European banking dynasty, so that's your Rothschilds, and also a chap called Adam Weishaupt, who was a leader of an underground group called the Illuminati, who basically had, is it arcane knowledge for esoteric, occultic knowledge? And together they said, right, Sabbatai, you're the Satanist, you're going to bring society to its knees through things like the porn industry, alcohol, Hollywood, etc., etc. Adam, you're the illuminated one. You're going to use all the secret symbology that the masses, the unchosen ones, that they won't understand. We want you to infiltrate the lodges, and we want you basically to control those people that are not in enlightened consciousness, because an enlightened person, folks, you can't control. And the Rothschilds came in and said, we'll bankroll it. And end every other war since. So what I'm saying is, folks, you don't have to write to me and say, Chris, at my lodge, we don't know about like Building 7 and yada yada. Yeah, I know you don't. I went to a bushcraft weekend with 3 mates, all of them Grand Master Masons. I don't know if that's the expression, but, you know, all of them who left because they said the workload trying to learn all this stuff, it was just too much. And honestly, if I was to talk how I'm talking now, they were just, you could see their eyes glazed over in kind of like this fear that they had no clue about any of this stuff. So I just want to clear that up. This is different. This is Kabbalistic Sabbatean doctrine we're talking about. This is the original Masonry as brought from the Middle East, backed by groups like the Knights Templar, and which is being used at high levels against us. So, in the Scottish Rite branch of Freemasonry, the 33rd degree is the highest honorary level. The master, if you reach that level, you're master of duality, light, shadow, good and evil, and the unlocking of ancient mysteries. I'm going to say that's bullshit because there's so many celebrities that are 33rd degree as we're going to come and look at, and there's no way they know the shit that we're talking about now. But hey ho. As described in Masonic texts like Albert Pike's Morals and Dogma, the 33rd degree embodies royal secret of balance between the divine and the material. This is getting your balance, folks, between your marching in London, which is good that people are starting to become aware that there's a darkness out there. In this case, they're seeing it in the form of illegal migrants. Is yes, you've got to do that, but you've also got to do the shadow work on yourself. Get over your childhood trauma, of which we all have experienced something. And by doing so, you bring yourself into the light. So then you have a divine connection. That's your as above, referred to in Freemasonry. And then you have your material world, your so below. That's your, community, getting together as groups. It's so important to have both. But as Sun Tzu said at the beginning, Sun Tzu, he says most people don't even have either, do they? They don't know themselves and they don't know what's going on. So, again, scripture, what was it? Was it JC? He said, give unto Caesar what is Caesar's, give unto God what's God. That's allegory, saying there is certain stuff in this material resistance that is hard not to go along with. We discussed it recently. Should you just stop your poll tax and then or community council tax and risk having the house that you've spent 40 years paying for taken away from you? I'm just saying a possibility. This is what was meant by that allegory. Give unto Caesar what is Caesar's, but give unto the divine what is the divine, because the divine is you. Moving back, and we're going to come on, folks, to a lot of this symbolism, right? Look at the JCB. Why is it that vehicles of destruction are being used in reference to a small country in the Middle East with these occultic numbers? Look, 9/11 has been stenciled on that JCB. Could it be that there's a beast system in operation and that most people are just quite blind to it? And that when you want to symbolize death and destruction, which is what Kabbalah, the Kabbalists practice, they practice that there's divine sparks and that they've got to rein in, that's life, they got to rein in those sparks, darken and destroy them, which will then put them in the place of God to then rebuild in, their plan, so to speak. And I know that you don't believe this and think that sounds utter nonsense, and I wouldn't disagree with you, but they believe in it. Believe me, they believe in it. And when you see all the symbolism that we're going to look at, look, another 9/11 on the last plane to allegedly leave Afghanistan. There's the 33 on the news. That was on the news when a certain thing went bang, 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 bang. In perhaps it was a city of gambling in America during a certain rock festival. We'll come on to that. Get back to me notes. Thank you for bearing with us. It's not hard to present all this live, folks. The 33rd degree, royal secret, the balance of the divine and the material. We just covered that. It's important to march, but it's also important, folks, to fucking understand what's going on, or you'll be led up the garden path. Often interpreted esoterically as the pathway to godlike power, know thyself, through the 33rd vertebrae of the human spine, which corresponds to the ascent of spiritual energy. So you know this, don't you? This life of Jesus, 33 years, is an allegory for the energy that travels up and down the 33rd vertebrae of your spine and fires off your endocrine glands, your pituitary and your pineal, to name a couple. They produce serotonin and DMT, milk and honey. Hence you enter the land of milk and honey. Kundalini, this is referred to in the ancient Eastern mysticism, or serpent power. This ties into broader occult numerology, where 33 is a master number. We're going to come on and look at master numbers. Why do they use this number 11? Amplifying the Trinity 3 by the master builder. 11. 3 times 11 is 33, signaling ultimate control and illumination. So when you're seeing this symbolism, they're saying to you that they are the ones ultimately in control, and that you're in the darkness, and they believe they're the enlightened ones. I personally would disagree. I'll come on and explain the number bit, folks. Don't worry about that. So within the framework of a deep state, understood here as a shadowy network of elite influencers, secret societies and occult practitioners pulling the strings behind global events, the Masonic 33 becomes the deliberate signature or calling card. The rationale is rooted in ancient principle called predictive programming or ritual revelation, where perpetrators orchestrate events, embed symbolic markers to signal to fellow initiates that the operation is under their control, while mocking the uninitiated masses who remain oblivious. This isn't random coincidence, but forms psychological and spiritual warfare. By openly displaying the symbol, the orchestrators fulfill a karmic or ritualistic obligation to reveal their actions, therefore maintaining plausible deniability and amplify the event's energetic power through numerological ritual. We'll come on and look at that. We'll look at some YouTubers that use this power in their videos. The biggest YouTubers, folks, have had to sign up to a certain club. I'll come on and explain that, but it's no coincidence, is it, that the biggest YouTuber on the planet with God knows how many millions of subscribers, is it like 30 million now, that he's Mr. Beast. Dun dun dun. I'm just going to paraphrase this now, scroll through it. So the 33 is mocking Christ's crucifixion. The 33 acts as a fingerprint, ensuring the ritual's completion and warding off spiritual backlash. They're talking about wars, surveillance, and social control. Here it talks about New York and Washington that time. The esoteric theorists arguing this was a Masonic ritual. And when I say Masonic, folks, forget thinking of Freemasons in your local lodge, although, you know, when you think many of your judges and police force belong to a secret society which they allege allegiance to or death, does shed a bit of a different light on it. We're talking the Masons, that when the Knights Templar went to protect the Crusaders and they pilgrimaged to the Middle East, they learnt this esoteric knowledge. They learnt it from the master builders over there who, you know, had links going back to building the temples, and they knew all the astrology and symbology, etc., etc. The Templars brought this back to Europe, and they used it. They used this knowledge to build the most beautiful cities, you know, and the cathedrals. Then the Catholic Church, I'll come on to, you know, who do you think runs the Catholic Church? Then they didn't want them bringing this knowledge back because it was actually telling people enlightenment, and the function of religion is to keep people in the dark, isn't it? Going swiftly back, this is I call this Scam 19, folks. I'm never going to call it that word because you're just giving these people power. And you're making something. Remember, they practice magic, making things appear real that never were. And they're talking here about press conferences repeatedly featured the number 33, locking people in their houses on March the 9th, 33s, a 9 with 33 cases reported, yada, yada, yada. The Epstein scandal, the 33,000 deleted emails, and it goes on. This is talking about, you know, certain event that we certainly can't talk about on this channel. But recently, you saw the New York shooter who died in Blackstone's building on the 33 third degree floor. That might not mean anything to you, but to this lot, Blackstone, that's the octagonal gases at the north face of Saturn, which create this geometric image of a black cube, hence your black rock, Blackstone, hence your Mecca, hence your, is it Wall Street, all these black cube designs. And it goes back to the time when people worship Saturn or Kronos or Satan, also referred to as Baal, and they practice things like child sacrifice and the like. And this wasn't that long ago, folks, in human history. You know, you could be talking certainly in the last 6,000 years or so. And the notion that they just went away is utterly stupid. When you see how, you know, when you can get anything you want by following your doctrine, you get anything you want in the material world, that you will get riches beyond belief, but you'll never be able to enter paradise. Hence the parable about the camel and the eye of the needle. So, right, I won't go on about that, but let's have a look at some symbolism. And this is just, I've got this folder and I chuck this stuff in because I find this fascinating. Folks, can we get some, we've got an awful lot of people watching, can we get some likes and subscribes, please? Could you please like, subscribe and share? This might not make sense to you now, but I promise this is what you've been looking for your whole life. When you've had that feeling like you want to be one of the boys, but you kind of secretly think maybe they don't like you, or, you know, you're bought into the medical narrative because you just didn't know and you was a bit afraid, and yada yada yada. This is the knowledge that's been hidden from you your whole life. This is why it probably doesn't make sense, but it will the more you can tune into it. So thank you to everyone that's liked and subscribed. I covered that slide. What else we got here? This was the fire truck when that incident in a certain gambling city in America went bang, 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 bang. And there were helicopters and there was a rock concert and a yada, yada, yada. And the guy was arrested on what floor? The 32nd floor. So symbolic that this guy wasn't an initiate. He was just being used by the cabal. 32 is the point. I had this explained to me. Let me think. 32 degrees Fahrenheit is at the point at which water freezes. 33 degrees is when it unfreezes. Apparently, this is the allegory that 32 degrees you're frozen in your ignorance, you don't know shit. 33 is why when you become an initiate. This I flagged up, folks. This film, Angels and Demons, was actually called Illuminati originally. Illuminati. And what happened was it came out at exactly the same time as that stuff in New York and Washington. And whenever anyone Googled Building 7, the Google searches are coming back with, when anyone Googled Illuminati, as in the movie, the film, looking for information on it, they was coming back with all these internet searches saying, oh, they're the ones responsible for Building 7, da-da-da-da-da-da. And of course, the cabal didn't want that. So what they did is they changed the name of the film, didn't they, to Angels and Demons, which originally was just its tagline. Remember what I said? You look at the handshake. Church has been infiltrated at all levels, folks. Always has been. You are never going to hear Enlightenment doctrine coming from a pulpit. You're just going to hear the Bible used as a geography and history book, which is not helpful. So this is where his company just bought X for 33 billion. This is all your publishing industry, folks. There's a reason Stephen King went from being a skint school teacher, earning nothing, to getting a $300,000 advance overnight when he wrote Carrie, a dark, satanic literature. I know it's fucking fiction. I'm not saying it scares the shit out of me or anything. I'm just saying this is how it works. This is why J.K. Rowling, who wrote her book on tissue paper in the local cafe when she was she may well have done. And but what did she write about? She wrote about the occult, didn't she? Albeit for children, even better in the eyes of this lot. Basically become a millionaire overnight. This is Barnes & Noble at 33 East Street. The government reimbursing Buzz $33 for his trip to the... Did he go to... Put it in the comments, folks. Did Buzz go to the moon? Put it in the comments if you understand Jack Parsons. Put it in the comments if you believe that actually Buzz was a 32nd degree Freemason at the time, and Neil Armstrong was an initiate who was 33rd degree. It's the 33 Club in Disney World. Look at the floor. Symbolic of duality. Whose favourite club is it? A certain actor called Tom Hanks. This is the pyramid, or the pyramid shape at which, at the point here where in the Mayan or South American history they'd what's the word? Sacrifice people, wouldn't they? At the top of this pyramid, who got sacrificed? If I say that here is a book depository building, and if I say that this is the 33rd parallel, it's actually 32.45, so it's in the 33rd degree. Then you start to make a bit more sense. There you go. There's the coordinates there. There's Keith doing his bit to keep his royalties coming in. No coincidence. Mick Jagger wears black and red. So what we got there? We got the they call it the Eye of Horus, but originally it goes back to Saturn when they worship Saturn. And Saturn, if you look at Saturn and its rings, looks like a big eye looking down at you, doesn't it? And of course, what's the symbol with the cigarette lighter? Put it in the comments if you know. Why is that symbolic? So this is James Franco, who had a rough time in Hollywood, didn't he? By making his young proteges, his young actresses, take their tops off. We'll come on to why people in Hollywood succeed if they're incredibly depraved. But you have to understand. Oh, sorry about that. You have to understand, Hollywood was where the filmographers went west, didn't they? When they was kicked out of New York for their porn cinemas, their Nickelodeons, the machines where you could put your eye to it. I can't remember the name of it. And you could wind the machine. Put it in the comments, the name of the machine, and you'd see someone taking their clothes off. Why is that? Why does that matter? Well, because it keeps men, and probably women, but it keeps them in their lower chakras, doesn't it? In their beast mentality. It keeps their energy going down instead of fired to where you need it to be a true warrior, which is your pineal and your pituitary. And what did they do? They said, right, we'll go out west, we'll film our own industry, we'll call it Hollywood. Holly, after the wood that the ancient magicians used to cut the air to let the evil spirits through, Hollywood. And at the same time, the rocket industry was developing with Jack Parsons. And Jack couldn't get a rocket in space, no matter how he tried. So what did he do? He went to the occult, didn't he? He went to Thelema, a sex and drug magic cult, headed by a chap called Aleister Crowley. So all of this might not seem it, folks, but it's all related. So what have we got going on here? So first off, look at James's hand. This is in the 32nd edition. He's making a certain symbol, isn't it? He's making an M with his fingers. Or it could just be pure coincidence. Who's going to know? And then, of course, we've got people down through the ages who've made the same symbol. The German painter, it's alleged, kept one lodge in Germany and threw the other two out. He threw the other two out because he recognised they were being infiltrated and controlled by the cabal. And of course, remember your Adam Weishaupt, he said he would use his Illuminati to infiltrate all the lodges so that they've got the minds of the movers and shakers in society who are living in their ego. So it's a big ego thing, isn't it, to join a secret club? You know, it makes people who've maybe never felt important before in their life suddenly feel, really important. A lot of veterans who leave the military and they get this low because they don't feel important like they used to. Very appealing option to them. So, yes, Adolf recognised that, didn't he? He also recognised that the cabal control people through the trade unions. The trade unions that pulled the rug from under the feet of the German soldiers in World War I. And where was the painter at the time? He was in the trenches, wasn't he? You can see how history was formed. Still doesn't mean that he was used and manipulated into the game. But I won't go on. So could it be that James has got his 32nd degree level. And then what do they do when they get... What ritual do they have to undergo at the 33 level if you're a Hollywood Mason? The humiliation ritual, isn't it? There you go. Not just a humiliation ritual. You have to dress up as a woman. Remember, Dave Chappelle fought against this. He said, how come you sign these $1 million deals with these men in suits? You get all the materialistic stuff, but you have to dress up as a woman. This is humiliating. I'm never going to do it. And of course, he turned down his $19 million contract, went off to Africa for 10 years, realised that being obscure and not a funny comedian is a bit shit, went back to Hollywood and said, where can I sign? And what's the next thing? Dave started wearing dresses, didn't he? I've got a couple of pictures. I'm not going to show them. And instantly, I love Dave Chappelle, folks. The funniest thing I think he ever said is, he said, I've been around Hollywood enough to know you don't mention the Jews. Yes, very funny guy. So there you go. What else we got? There's John Hinckley. Was a chap that shot Reagan, was it not? Look at the date, March the 30th. So again, there's your 33. 33 Thomas Street is the likely mass surveillance hub operated by the NSA. There you go. There is it on spacecraft. Proposed. There's James doing his bit. Made me smile when I went through Heathrow Airport and my book was number 12 bestseller and his was number 14. But there's a reason why these people come from obscurity as not particularly funny comedians, although, art is subjective, isn't it? And suddenly become the host of one of the top selling, highly watched shows in America. Prohibition. I won't make that bigger, folks, but take my word for it. Prohibition ends in 1933. Of course it did, because they decide when Prohibition's going to end. Now, this is a chap called Rice Gum. Okay, this is Rice Gum. I state here and now, I like Rice Gum. I've watched lots of it. Used to watch his stuff back in the day. It was like my Netflix sort of thing, right? But some of you, the more astute, might recognise Rice Gum's doing a certain symbol in this picture, as is Barbara Bush in this one. Remember, Bush family made their money from opium smuggling. Remember that, not oil, opium smuggling and slave labour from Auschwitz. So remember, when these presidents walk through, former slave labour camps and say, this must never happen again, like literally they profited from it. So there's Rice Gum. And that's his balcony. He says, I'm just going to film the balcony. And purely coincidental, of course, is cleaner there's got the symbol of enlightenment, or the enlightened ones on his shirt, the rising sun. But that's not what I wanted to mention. They then come on and start talking about this. Does anyone know who Jake Paul is? Probably been living in a cave, right? If you don't. So Jake Paul is a guy that fought Mike Tyson recently. Probably the luckiest person in history to fight Mike Tyson, wouldn't he? I'm 55, folks. And I'd smash the fuck out of Jake Paul, I'll tell you that. Well, put it this way. I'd put up a lot more of a fight than Mike Tyson did. You know what I'm saying? I feel no different to when I'm 19. And I was never even champion of the world. So, but why is Jake Paul had this massive rise to fame? He was just a snotty little kid. No offense, Jake, if you're watching. It's just an expression. Doing pretty shit YouTube videos which were highly embarrassing and cringeworthy and just showed up the poor American people because he wasn't very intelligent. He'd go to a sacred place in Japan and think it was funny to dive in the koi carp pool. You know, this kind of stuff. Anyway, this is his crib, as I believe it's referred to. That's Jake Paul has bought this house, right? You can see up there, look, Jake Paul cribs. And Rice Gum and his girlfriend here, or friend who's a girl, are critiquing it. So Rice Gum puts his finger to his lips. I think if you haven't guessed already, you start to guess what that means. And then they get up a picture of Jake Paul's crib. And they say, hey, look, how could we make this crib, a bit better for him? So they start scrawling on the photo with with using like Photoshop or whatever. And if you actually look at Jake's house as it is, what does it look like? I don't know if we've got don't think I've got put a picture in there. But it already looks like a Masonic lodge, doesn't it? Because it's got the two pillars, the Boaz or Bars and Joachim, Jackim, however you say that. And what they did, what Rice Gum did, is he said, first of all, I think he needs a refrigerator, so let's give him a refrigerator. So they posted this refrigerator. What does that symbolize if you know a Masonic hall? Symbolizes the moon, doesn't it? That's on the top of one of the pillars. Then he says, I think he needs a microwave. He's symbolizing the sun symbolism that sits aside the other pillar. This all goes back to the Kabbalah, incidentally, folks. I'm not even going to go there today, not least of which because I'm still trying to get my head around it, right? So what they're saying is, how come Jake Paul has got this meteoric rise to fame when he's just a crap YouTuber? He's done it because he's symbolizing the occult, basically. I don't know whether he's actually become a Mason or a high-level Hollywood Mason, how it works. But this is what Rice Gum's saying. He then says, let's give him a dressing table where he can keep his makeup, and they put the dressing table in. If you've ever been in a Masonic hall, they have an altar, don't they, at the front. He then says, let's give him a rope to himself, right? Not very nice, folks. Sorry, hope that don't trigger you. But what's the rope symbolic of? It's symbolic of the initiation ritual into Freemasonry, isn't it? Where you put the noose around your neck. And the chair is symbolic of the dais, the black box. That's very important in Masonry. So if you ever get stopped for speeding, you just say to the policeman, I'm a square guy. And miraculously say, on your way, sir. Or, what is it? Anyway. So fascinating. And finally, some of you probably have clicked it. If you look at, he said he needs a picture of Rice Gum on the wall. Look at Rice Gum's glasses. Can you see the double lightning, which is symbolic in Greek mythology, but that's not Zeus, isn't it? But that's not what's in play here. What's in play is the two lightnings represent 33. So Rice Gum's saying, hey, I'm a 33rd degree Mason, and I'm secretly, only Masons will understand this video, I'm acknowledging another fellow 33rd degree Freemason. Or that's how you can interpret it. You don't have to, folks. You've got free choice. I'm not even saying what I believe in this scenario. I'm just showing you what's out there. Moving on. Yes, this was someone getting arrested for, heaven forbid, not wearing their underpants on their face. And the media chose that shop to broadcast. This was a certain former Royal Marine up north in England who drove through a crowd of people, allegedly. You'll see a certain number on the police van that they chose to feature in the media. This is a chap in a certain little country in the Middle East when a lot of people just walked over the most highly secure border on the planet. A lot of people who actually looked like sub-Saharan Africans, i.e. mercenaries, rather than the people that you were told they were. But you'll see he's got a certain number on his helmet. Remember what it said in the text at the beginning. Used as a symbol to acknowledge the success of an operation whilst laughing at those people that got no clue. This was the Titanic that submerged, and it goes on and on and on. But it's more fascinating than this, folks, because even if you don't care about this, and even if you think it's pareidolia, this word here, I had to look it up, folks, I'll be honest. Pareidolia, right? That means the phenomenon of seeing patterns in stuff that doesn't exist. Like when people say Jesus is in a slice of toast or is the image. They're saying that this isn't that. But it gets more fascinating than that, folks. Friends, could we get some subscribes, please, and some likes? Just hit that subscribe button. Help this channel, because, be honest, are you seeing anyone else talking about this? This is what's going on. You got 1 million people estimated are going to descend on September the 13th in London, and it's distinctly possible that a very few even get any of this. Maybe 1 or 2. And do they have the will they be the ones on the stage? I really doubt it. But it gets way more fascinating when we come on to the numerology. And what I would suggest, folks, if is you get a copy of this book, The Dictionary of All Scripture and Myth. This is the Bible decode. So, you go in church and they say, Jesus, he walked on water and etc. And you're like, what the fuck? Why are we sat here believing this? Why are people like getting all devout and pious about this it's nonsense? I'm not talking about the Christ. I'm saying that, instead of explaining that, no, when you calm the water and raise your consciousness, you fire off your pineal gland, which is the Christ within you, right? Makes far more sense, doesn't it? Basically, if you keep your cool, you'll be really happy. And you'll go out and you'll smile at people and you'll hug them. And you won't be spreading the fear and etc., etc. Just a quick one. I want to say thank you to Noel. You absolute legend. No, you've supported me so hugely over these last few months. I really appreciate it, brother. I absolutely do. But no, let me know, folks, if I put a copy of the dictionary in I've got a PDF dictionary in PDF form, very similar to this. I could put it in my newsletter. Would you sign up for the newsletter if I put that in? You already get a copy of my book, Eat and Smoke, if you sign up for my newsletter. Look, there's my first memoir, Eat and Smoke. Story of how I ended up on my ass, chronically addicted to crystal meth, whilst working as a doorman for the Hong Kong Triads in Wan Chai, the gangland nightclub district in Hong Kong, or one of Hong Kong's all a gangland district. But if you want to I suggest sign up for my newsletter, folks, because I talk about this stuff. There's a link down in the comments, or just go to christhrall.com. There you go. There's a thing on the screen. Let me know if I put a copy of it in the newsletter. Do you think more people would sign up? Because this is the stuff we've got to understand. This is how the Bible explains human consciousness. And just bear with me. We've got other stuff we're going to come on to, but this is the good stuff, folks. So in short, the number 9, why are you always seeing the number 9, 9, 11, etc.? It's because it's the number of human consciousness. And I'm just going to walk you through how this works. Because then when you go in a church and the vicar or the father is coming out of all this stuff, you can go, mate, you have no clue what you're talking about. You're a lovely person and you mean well, but you're keeping all the people ill-informed. So this is Revelation. It says, and I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus and for the word of God, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads, his mark or in their hands, and they lived and reigned with Christ 1,000 years. Let's just come on to another piece. There's your 666. Yes, and he provides that no one will be able to buy or sell except the one who has the mark, either the name of the beast or the number of his name. And this is in Revelation. Now, what does it mean? Before you all start talking about microchips and, 15-minute cities and digital credit and all that, which is all a thing, folks. I'm not saying it's not. It's a worrying thing as well if we don't get our eye on the ball. No. 9 is the single most important number that you and I can understand. This is like what it's all about. This is like the Xbox for people that give a shit, right? So, if we go back to our scripture, look. 9, the number 3. Remember we're talking about 33. 3 3s are 9. Remember, if you look at the star of a certain country that might or might not be in the Middle East, it's a triangle and a triangle. It's a 3 and a 3. Symbolizing 9, isn't it? 3 3s are 9. This is equally as important to understand. The number 3 is the number of perfection and completeness. 9, which is 3 squared, refers to the attainment of perfection on the lower 3 planes. This is why they go on about this stuff. And why is it important? So when the number of the beast, he shall have the number of the beast, is 6 plus 6 plus 6. In numerology, it's 18. And in numerology, if it's not a master number like 11, 22, 33, you reduce it. So you then add the 1 and the 8. That gives you 9. 9, as we saw, it's the number of perfection, and it's the number of human consciousness. But that's awakened human consciousnness, which in Masonry and esoterics is referred to as above. You've also got, sorry, I said that wrong. This is unenlightened consciousness. 666 is a number of carbon. It's earth. Consciousness, earth, water, air, fire. That's represented by those 4 elements. And so earth is the lowest element, carbon, 666. So this is saying if you want to live your life at the lowest you can be, right, then operate with with the mark of the beast. So I'm not explaining this very well. So the mark in the forehead is the pineal, isn't it? The mark in the hand is your actions. Your hand in allegory is how you conduct yourself. which is dictated by your pituitary gland, but we'll come on to that later, another video. So some people, they are enlightened, they understand peace, love, kindness, empathy. They've emigrated to the right-hand side of their brain, and as such, their pineal gland kicks in and starts functioning. And this is represented in Scripture by the 144,000, which shall ascend to heaven here. And look, the Lamb being Jesus Christ, aka your pineal gland, standing on the Mount of Zion. Zion is spiritual consciousness. So Mount, when Moses went on the mountain, this is in like people that are living in their upper self. They're overcoming the bullshit. They're not out there screaming at people. They know that the battle is inside, right? And 144,000 of them will ascend. And if we look at the 144,000, again, is human consciousness, because the one add the four is 9. So what it's saying is, as above, so below. If 666 is used to represent the people living in their lower self, their beast self, that live in the beast system, that are controlled by their television, their work, and a whole lot of other stuff, that just believe what they're told by the news, and overeating, and they're having their McDonald's and getting shit-faced every night. All of this I've done, folks. This is not a judgment. I was off my head for 35 years. It's, everyone's on their own journey, aren't they? But you've got the enlightened, the 144,000, which is also 9. So 9 and 9. And this is symbolic of people that have overcome this thing called the body and realize there's so much more to this life, that we're one unified consciousness, and that if you want to address it, you have to send your energy to your pituitary. You end up in a land of milk and honey, serotonin, DMT, which moves you to the right hemisphere of the brain, where you operate with peace, love, kindness. You're that person that comes out and gives someone a hug when they meet them, because you recognize they're you and they're struggling along in a different body, aren't they? Right? So again, you might not take this seriously, but they do. I'll show you some stuff. So in here it says, look, the 144,000 were singing a song. Why? Because life is energy, vibration, and frequency. And if you take those harmonics I just said and the frequencies of them, what are they all going to reduce to in numerology? Boom, number 9. What about your sides in geometry, your sacred geometry? Everything reduces to 9, doesn't it? So if you have a square, 90, 90, 90 and 90 degrees, 9 4's 27, 2 add to 7 is 9. If you add a pentagon, the angle's reduced to 9. It's the sacred fabric, the ether of the universe. It's how matter is created. So harmonically, through music, in the beginning there was the word, and those spectrums condense light into matter, which creates life, right? So here he's talking about the song, and if you go to our dictionary of scriptures and myth, look at the song. A symbol of aspiration through spirit, taking in the spirit, aspiration, wanting the spirit in you, through harmonizing of the qualities and raising the mind towards wisdom and love. Clever. There's the hand, symbolic of your actions. There's your head, a symbol of high intelligence and spiritual progress, i.e. your pineal gland. There's your Monster Energy. So you got a drink that's absolutely going to toxify you. It's caffeine and sugar. It is going to destroy your pH balance. And your pH balance is the most important thing you need to understand, folks. If you don't have a packet of pH strips in your house, like, come on, you ain't saving no country from illegal immigration. Believe me, because this is how they're controlling you. They're putting out this shit, this caffeine and these caffeinated sugary drinks because they don't want you to be able to lick a piece of paper and have it come up green. You can't really see it. You can just see it's green there. Look. Matches that one. 7. I've got a pH balance of 7. If you eat Western diet, carbohydrate diet, you're going to be acidic. If you're acidic, your harmony, your resonant frequency cannot match the divine. It can't match the universe. You're not being spoken to. You are going to get your output in life is less. If you don't raise your frequency, life doesn't meet you at that frequency. Do you get what I'm saying? This is why people get depressed. This is why people end up in a place where their frequency is so low, they think, what's the point, What's the point in continuing? On that point, folks, I'm just going to take a very small break and say, because we're losing so many people, our beautiful veterans, right? I'm not talking about fucking war here. I mean people that genuinely believed they was doing a good thing for their fellow humans, right? We're losing a lot of them. They're taking themselves out of the game, folks. As such, I'm climbing Mount Everest in April, and I'm going to use my platform as a show host and being in the media. I was on GB News the other day to say, why is no one making the link between adult mental health and childhood trauma? Because if we don't make that link, then we can't understand why so many people are, buying a farm, so to speak. So let me just play you this.
Morning, legends. I'm Chris Thrall. I'm a former Royal Marines commando. Upon leaving the forces, ended up chronically mentally unwell, self-medicating, undiagnosed trauma, and homeless on the streets of Hong Kong. It was the toughest battle I ever had to fight, but without the support of the medical community, without self-help groups, I learned the answers to rebuild my life, go on to complete a series of extreme charity challenges to send a vital message out there for other veterans who are struggling. I've run the length of the United Kingdom, run across the Sahara Desert, rode across the Atlantic Ocean. Now I'm taking on my biggest challenge yet, climbing Mount Everest. If you can support me, friends, and continue to shine a light for our struggling veterans and let them know there is life after PTSD, I'll put a link below. If you spare a fiver, that's absolutely fine. And let's give our veterans the respect that they deserve. Much love.
There we go, folks. And can I just clarify, that's not a deceased person in that picture. That is how I was in Hong Kong, wandering the streets of Hong Kong, homeless, with my guitar. And it's just symbolic, folks, of what's happening. Veterans make up the biggest homeless statistics, suicide, etc., etc. If you can spare a fiver link, please do. There's a link below. Remember, what you put out, you get back tenfold. Right, got some more stuff to be talking about. We were talking about Monster Energy, weren't we? It's no surprise that the symbol on Monster Energy is Vav 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 in a certain language, 666. Remember what we said, as above, so below. The 666 represents lower consciousness, people who live in their ego, the people that really are probably, I mean, no disrespect, but they're not really helpful to understand what's going on at the moment in this country. Although, obviously everyone's on their own journey. There you go. Vav, vav, vav. Red Bull or Red Baal. Remember we talked about Kronos earlier, Saturn or Baal. It's no surprise that this symbolism's used. There's Mr. Beast himself. Look, if you look at the numbers in his thumbnail of his YouTube video, He's got 6, 6, 6. This guy's not stupid. He worked out how to get, how to become the top YouTuber on the planet. He's playing the game. Not sure why that photo's gone like that. Look at the one-eyed symbolism in the background of his Squid Game. Again, you've got, look at the symbolism, the 2 lightning strikes, the 33. Clever stuff, folks. You've got to hand it to people that understand esoterics. It's just this lot are using it for dark reasons. Giving out £30,000 to someone in a supermarket, that's not helping them, folks. That's just selling children on materialistic, wealth. There's a further symbolism. They love their masculine and their feminine. Send me some pictures, folks. Whenever you see these these Ferris wheels going up around the country, have a guess what's on the, what they put them in close proximity to. Remember, the Sabbatean Frankists, they're an ancient sex and magic cult. That's what you're seeing. You might not believe this, but this goes back to Babylon, certainly ancient Egypt, or Kem meaning mud. Mud, remember, symbolic of the first stage of consciousness. Let me move on. I'm going to lose people. That's his manager there. And enough about that. How do you get over your ego? This is the story of David overcoming Goliath, isn't it? You overcome yourself. When you overcome this material world, then you realize that there's something more. Symbolized in the scripture, David, he had 5 pebbles. David is symbolic of higher consciousness and love. And he takes down the giant, the beast, which we've talked about, haven't we? The ego. He brings him down. How? He takes 5 pebbles representing you overcome your 5 senses. He pings one at the big fella. And where's it hit him? Hits him in the pineal gland, doesn't it? The forehead. It's just allegory for enlightenment. Folks, I'm going to go to locals. There you go. I'm going to go to locals in a minute. I'm going to talk through more of this stuff that I can't talk about here. Yes, okay, not a lot more there for us. Let me just whip through the rest of the news, folks, that I brought up. Why is this guy getting a lot of airtime? He'll get all the airtime he wants. Robert Kennedy, I'm not saying he's a bad person. I don't really care, folks. What I'm saying is his job, he's never going to talk about the nature of well-being, is he? He's never going to flag up Pasteur versus Béchamp. Never going to flag up that there's certain things, can we say, in medicine that have never been proved because they don't exist. And the cabal, they just want you to be in victim mode. Remember, at the bottom of the pyramid, they do not want you to know that your well-being, you are responsible for it. They want you blaming other people for it. And this chap here, I'm not calling him a bad person. I'm just saying, and he's doing some great stuff. But they're going to keep giving him exposure until the point where he makes that step in his knowledge, like we've all done, that realizes there ain't no bogeyman, folks. Everything comes from within you. I won't labour that point. This was the US Navy SEALs. This is Trump's ordered them to sink this boat. This is just how many people in the boat, folks? Come on. It's a small boat, so it's not going to be 33. It's going to be 11, isn't it? We've already looked at 11. Let's just take one little look further. Why are they so obsessed with this number? because they call it the pyramid number. Remember, they are building their new world order. They're dismantling everything that exists at the moment, you, your family, your home life, yada, 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 and they are rebuilding it in their image, where they believe that they have become God. And the reason they use the number is if you go once 1, it's 1. If you go 11 11s, it's 1 2 1. If you 111 times 111, 1 2 3 2 1, and so on and so forth. And this here is you see it as a triangle, but really this should be a pyramid shape, shouldn't it? Because these numbers form a pyramid. Again, quite clever. Something else we've got to look at is this is Archaics, very popular YouTuber. He's asking the question, look, the world we're told we live in and the structuring demonstrated in Archaics cannot both be true. Welcome to the holosphere, where our reality collapses to zero upon mathematical scrutiny, and everything except those represented by this immortal number 2178. Join me today. So he's saying that all numbers, when you take them away from themselves, collapse to zero. But there's a remaining minority that will only collapse to 2178. Now, bear with me here. You can ask me more about this. We'll go to locals in a minute. But what if that's because if you look at the numerology, you start to understand number 9, it's the number between harmonics, resonancy, sound, light, sacred geometry, etc., etc. It's the number of consciousness. Consciousness is created by this great experiment that we're all in. In the beginning, there was the word, there was energy, vibration, and frequency. Well, add the number up. Look, 2 add 1 is 3. 3 add 7 is 10. 10 add 8 is 19, is 18. Add the 1 and the 8, 9. So what Archaics is stumbled upon here, doesn't appear to grasp it, is, what did I say? 9, it's the fabric of the universe. That's why you can't get rid of it. Fascinating, this stuff. Fascinating. Did I get to the end of that? Yes, I did. So going back to this is just insane. Like, the president's just given the order to annihilate basically a few guys that are earning a few quid, there won't be very much, by shipping some sniff across to the mainland, the mainland USA. This could be your brother who's been having a bad time after he left the military, couldn't get a job, maybe started drinking a bit too much, got offered a deal which in the material world he couldn't resist, absolutely said, yeah, okay, I'll do it. What do I get? I'll get 12 grand for doing this. Brilliant. I can pay off me bloody, the excess on me back payments on the mortgage, right? There's your 11, folks. They're telling you what this is really about. Ritual sacrifice, basically. Look, it was a massive amount of you-know-whats coming into our country to kill a lot of people. I highlighted that, folks, because it's not true. It's not strictly true. First off, you're always going to have substance misuse in a beast system. Of course you can, because everyone's not achieving their enlightenment. They're not happy. Secondly, if you understand substance use, you'll know that actually it's usually accidents why people die, or when they go into alcohol after they've done everything else and they drink, their organs collapse through sort of failure. But anyway, I'm just saying that as a substance misuse specialist. I didn't want to labour a point. This raid, the Navy SEALs in North Korea, this was awful. It's come out that they sent the Navy SEALs into North Korea And what happened was a fishing boat compromised them. And the Navy SEALs kind of didn't know what to do. So they just slaughtered them, these innocent fishermen. And I'm not calling a judgment call here, folks. It's just, this wasn't wartime or anything. This was just the fact that they got compromised being in a country, a sovereign nation that they shouldn't have been in, trying to plant listening to. I mean, that just sounds weird, doesn't it? Why would you have a listening? What were you going to listen to? Like the cockle shells or the crabs or something? All a bit bizarre. Yes. And then they tried to make sure they sank. Then they're coming up here and they're flagging up this nuclear weapon thing. Well, I don't know about you folks, but I'm not an absolute twat conspiracy theorist, but I'm seriously starting to wonder if they exist in the capacity that we're told, or whether we're actually looking at another form of device. Before you say anything, yes, I've been to Hiroshima. I did see evidence of a big fire. Lots of things melted. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I do wonder if we're being sold a bit of a line. And what have we got against North Korea anyway? This is me in North Korea. There we go. Perfectly fine over there, you know. I absolutely wish nobody in North Korea any fucking malice at all. You know, and then you got this one. This has come to light, isn't it? That look, Zuckerberg and Bill Gates. It's funny actually. A lot of people don't know this, but Gates, his mother's surname prior to marriage wasn't Gates. She chose a surname that people adopt if they don't want their identity revealed. Just thought that's interesting because you never hear that said about Bill Gates, do you? Kind of relates to the notion of the name stealers thing. But this is Zuckerberg. He's the guy whose Facebook was responsible for the death of your loved ones, wasn't it? And the chronic maiming that's gone on. They actually worked in conjunction with MI6 intelligence to stop you posting, to tell people don't buy into this bullshit. And yet, rather than be arrested and go to The Hague, or whatever the American equivalent is, he's having dinner with the president, along with another guy who shipped his product, can we say, down to sub-Saharan Africa to test on the people. And subsequently, masses of those people came up with a big disease with a little name, as did the gay community, who was also subjected to that, that thing when they went to their GP and were told, oh, you're in a high-risk group, you need this one. And as did the drug needle sharing community, because they were at risk of sharing blood, right? They were told, you need this one. And when it just an amazing coincidence of three completely separate groups of people all came down with the same condition. And then they went to their doctor, and their doctor said, oh, we've had a nice man, Mr. Fauci, on the phone. He's come up with this test. It's got three letters, the name of this test, begins with P. And he's not actually telling me the truth, that what that test actually tests for is cellular damage of people that have not been looking after their terrain inside them. No, what it does, instead, it flags up that damage and it rebrands it as the bogeyman jumping at them from another person. And after Mr. Fauci's told me this, and I've made you undertake this test, I'm now going to shove this highly toxic products at you from a certain, big big corporation that you've got to take, 25 times a day. And incidentally, that stuff's so toxic, you're probably not going to last very long. They're not telling you this, are they, when he's having dinner with the president? Anyway, folks, right, I'm going to go over to Locals. I'm going to take all your questions. There's the link for Locals. Can we like and subscribe, friends, please? We've got an awful lot of people watching. If we can like and subscribe, that'll be absolutely brilliant. Thank you to everyone who's chipped in a £5 for my upcoming Everest Summit to shine a light for struggling veterans and to raise awareness of the link between complex PTSD and childhood trauma, because nobody's talking about it. I'll be shouting it from the highest, most iconic peak on the planet. Locals is free, folks. When I do an after YouTube video, I do it for everyone, so you can come there and hear the stuff I can't talk about. I do have people on there that pay me £3 a month, I think it is. So what's that? Less than the price of a cup of coffee, because they like what I do. I'd encourage you to support what I do, folks. You can do that. Either join Locals as a paying member, or join me on Patreon, or become a YouTube member. It's $1.99. It's not a lot, is it? And it helps me to do what I do. Let's go over to Locals. If you're signing up for Locals and you're new, ignore the thing that says, "Oh, pay £5." You don't. You just got to click around that. I'm not sure how. I'm just going to come quickly to the chat because you guys have been absolutely awesome. It's been flying away. Look, Watcher, thank you so much. Thank you so much for noticing. Spooky, absolute legend. She supports me on Locals. Susie, look, she's got the little Viking helmet. That's a bit of my heritage there. The Thralls were the lower caste of Vikings. To answer your questions, why did I choose Viking symbols? We were the lower caste of Vikings. So I chose them. Thank you, Susie, for being a channel member. You're absolutely awesome. Yes, there's people out there that get it. Isn't it great that everyone's starting to understand? Yes, Steve, absolutely excellent. Good to see you, brother. Appreciate it. I think it's obvious why she divorced him. It's because he was running after youngsters on a certain island. Was he not? Yeah, Susie gets it. Clinton shipped in the coke, didn't he, for through Nicaragua, funded the Nicaraguans, bought arms, which they then sent to Iran to get a secret deal to release hostages. So all lied to and all blamed on Sir Oliver North. Yeah, a lot of this stuff coming out about Einstein now. Also, he was a bit of a deviant, wasn't he? He liked to sort of pretend he was in the bath and then invite women around. What is it with these people called Stein? Maybe he's invited Larry Silverstein around for a bath. A funny one, that, isn't it? Yes. There we go, Spooky. Hit the likes, folks. And there we go. Thank you, Cormac. You legend. Data, thank you for being a channel member. Noel, thank you for your kind donation and being a channel member. My thing's stuck. And anyone else that I haven't mentioned. Look, there's Chrissy. Look, thank you, Chris. Berry, channel member, thank you very much. Yes, Chris, work at it. You're acidic. Doesn't matter what you eat, folks. You just can't be acidic. And certain things are better to eat. I'm not going to go into that now because it gets quite complicated for people. But yes, I eat vegetables. Just vegetables. I try not to eat carbohydrates. I have chips and curry sauce once a week after my kickboxing. That's my little ritual. And I have a plant-based pizza once a week, which is bloody lovely. It tastes just like any other pizza you'd order, folks, in case you're wondering. But I just eat plants because I just want to be alkaline and I want to be close to God, the divine. You only get one life. Why would you want to be, anything else? What a lot of people are doing is, I think they go into this carnivore diet. I'd be really careful, folks. I'm not here to tell people what they can eat. I'd be very, very careful. I think what's happening is people that have had a lifetime of kind of autoimmune illness, inflammation and this sort of stuff, they're cutting out the carbs. And people go for the meat because it's like a macho thing, isn't it? It's like, I just eat meat. It makes you sound like you're a cowboy or something. And if you had the option of eating just meat or just veg, a lot of people think veg is like the disgusting option, don't they? It's like the meat is fucking tasty. Eggs, meat. I mean, who doesn't want to eat meat and eggs? But the problem is, because they're cutting out the carbohydrate, which is high on the glycemic index, and it's a lot of sugar, basically. They're getting these amazing benefits because, yes, we should all cut out carbs. The problem is that meat in itself is very high on the acidic index. So even though you've lowered the acid in your body, you're still eating predominantly a food substance which is just, plain acidic. And what a lot of these online channels I've noticed, these content producers that talk a lot about, we just eat meat, they don't understand evolution. Evolution, even if you believe the human story, which I don't, but 4.5 billion years you've been evolving. Right, 4.5 billion years. That's that, right? You might not have been a primate in that time, or Homo sapien or Homo erectus, but you've been evolving since the cooling of the earth. That's your 4.5 billion years. This is like when you started gathering food, or gathering food. Let me hold up a piece of paper. That width of the paper there, I'm talking about the single thickness of the paper. That is when you develop the tools to catch large animals, right? Before that, you were limited to grabbing minnows in a fishing stream or coming across a carcass. Mainly, you would have eaten grubs like they still do in the places I've lived, like Africa. I've lived in the Amazon rainforest, or I've survived in the Amazon rainforest, I should say. We ate grubs. We ate, like the Australians call them, witchetty grubs, right? Very quick, easy source of sort of protein. And what I'm saying is, it's only since we had the ability to make fire and catch large prey or chase it down that we've had the ability to have meat. Literally, there's the scale. Think of a millimeter there, and it's like a millionth thickness of that millimeter. This is what you've been evolving, is to be a gatherer, and an opportunistic hunter. And you've only got to ask yourself, first off, would you eat meat if it was raw? Would you go up to, I don't know, let's say a horse lying on the ground and go, oh, look, folks, let's tuck in. Let's start with its anus, because that's the easiest place to get in. And let's start chewing out its intestines, because that's the next. You wouldn't do it. It would taste fucking revolting. Why would you do that when you've got a hazelnut tree there, a blackberry bush there, you've got some gorgeous mushrooms down there, you've got nettles over there, massive source of iron, and you got shoots all around you, and shoots are absolutely delicious. I cannot see why you do it, right? And even if you would do it, that's so recent in human evolution. Okay. The second thing is, from an evolutionary perspective, it makes no sense because it's survival of the fittest and symbiosis. So symbiosis is those that can adapt to the environment. And when you don't eat meat, your stomach doesn't produce the sweat that produces like this horrible bacteria that gives you BO. So a lot of vegans don't use deodorant because you don't need to. You no longer smell. Well, from an evolutionary perspective, who would have survived? The predators, like the saber-toothed tigers or the bears, and, you know, the ones that stink, that can be smelt literally miles away by prey, or the ones that don't smell. Secondly, you know, the business that you do in the morning, if we can put it like that. Whoa. You don't want to be, you know, in a stall next to a fucking meat eater, do you? Especially if they've had a curry. It doesn't make sense. There's no logic to it. So anyway, I'm just putting that out there because I think a lot of people are confused on this issue. I will keep you updated. But yeah, I hope it helps. And the main thing is super greens, folks. This means you can cheat a little on your diet and still have your chips and your pasta and your potatoes, or try to have less of them. But super greens, I have this religiously, anything up to 5 times a day. There's a link below, folks. There's a link in my Amazon shop for the super greens. Just go down there, click on it. You can get that. You can get the strips. You can get a NutriBullet, etc., etc. I make a tiny, tiny little commission on it, folks, but I promise you I'm never going to get rich on it. Right, okay. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, dun, dun. Yes, there we go. Thank you, Natalie. Okay, folks, let's go over to locals. The link for locals is on the screen. Much, much love and absolutely fantastic Sunday. God bless.